My name is Lily. I am 27 years old, and I need you to understand something before I start. This is not a story about money. This is a story about a mother who spent her entire life making sure her daughter would be okay, and a woman who tried to take that away the moment she was gone. My mom passed away 3 years ago from cancer. I was there every single day. I held her hand through every chemotherapy session. I slept in hospital chairs for weeks at a time. I watched the strongest woman I have ever known fight with everything she had, and I watched her lose. The day she passed, something inside me went quiet in a way that has never fully come back. My mom was not a wealthy woman by accident. She worked for 30 years as a civil engineer. She woke up early and came home late and never once complained about the sacrifices she was making. She saved carefully, invested wisely, and built something real over the course of her lifetime. When she was diagnosed, she sat me down at our kitchen table and told me she had a plan. She said, "Lily, everything I have built is for you. I need you to promise me you will protect it." I promised her. I held her hand when I said it. I meant every word. She passed away 6 months later, leaving behind an estate worth $800,000. Her house, her savings, her investments, a lifetime of discipline and love wrapped into one final act of protection for her only daughter. She left it all to me. My father and my stepmother, Diane, had been married for 9 years by then. Diane had moved into our lives when I was 12, polished and charming and careful in the way that people are careful when they want something. My father loved her. I tried to love her too. I really did, but I always felt it. That quiet calculation behind her eyes the week after my mother's funeral, before I had even finished grieving, before I had slept a full night, before I had eaten a proper meal. Diane sat down across from me at the dining room table. She folded her hands neatly in front of her, and she said, Lily, your mother is gone now. Your father and I think it is only fair that the inheritance be divided between the family." I sat very still. I said, "Excuse me?" She explained, calmly, like she had rehearsed this, that my mother's money was excessive for one person, that family meant sharing, that it was what my mother would have wanted. I looked at my father. He was staring at the table. He did not say a single word to defend me. That was the moment I understood, completely and fully, that I was on my own in this. I stood up from that table, walked to my room, closed the door quietly, and called my mother's attorney the very next morning, because I had made a promise to my mom at a kitchen table when she was dying, and I was not going to break it. Not for anyone. Not even for my own father. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. Diane did not stop at that dining room conversation. Within 3 weeks, she had hired an attorney of her own. She filed a legal claim against my mother's estate, arguing that as my father's wife, she had a right to a portion of the asset. I remember the day those papers arrived at my door. I stood in my hallway and read every word. And then I sat down on the floor right there and just breathed for a long time. My mother had worked 30 years for this. 30 years of early mornings and late nights and careful saving and quiet sacrifice. And now the woman who had barely known her was standing in a courtroom claiming a piece of it. I hired the best attorney I could find. Her name was Miss Carroll, sharp and experienced and completely unintimidated by anything Diane's legal team threw at her. She looked at me in our first meeting and said, Lily, your mother was very thorough. She protected you well. We are going to be okay." Those words held me together on the days I felt like I was falling apart. The case went on for 4 months. 4 months of depositions and paperwork and sitting across a conference table from my stepmother while she looked at me like I was being unreasonable. For months of watching my father show up to every meeting on her side without once pulling me aside to ask how I was doing. That hurt more than anything Diane ever said or did. Because fathers are supposed to protect their daughters, even when it is hard. Even when it costs them something. Mine chose differently. The day of the final hearing, I walked into that courtroom with Miss Carroll beside me and my mother's photograph in my bag, the one from her engineering graduation, the one where she is smiling so wide her whole face is lit up. I put it in my bag because I needed her with me. The judge reviewed everything carefully. My mother's will, the trust documents, the clear and detailed instructions she had left behind, because she had been thorough. Because she had been careful, because even in her final months she was still protecting me. When the judge looked up from the papers, the courtroom went completely silent. He looked at Diane's attorney, and then he said, clearly and without any hesitation, that the claim had no legal standing, that my mother's estate was protected, that the will was valid and binding, and would be honored exactly as written. It was over in minutes. Diane sat very still in her chair. My father stared at the floor. I did not feel triumphant. I want to be honest about that. I did not walk out of that courtroom pumping my fist in the air. I walked out quietly with Miss Carroll and sat in my car for a long time. And I cried, not because I won, but because my mom was not there to see it. Because the woman who had spent 30 years making sure I would be okay never got to know that her plan worked, that her careful documents and her thorough preparation had protected her daughter exactly the way she intended. I pressed my hand flat against the photograph in my bag, and I whispered, I kept my promise, Mom. I kept it. My relationship with my father has never fully recovered. We speak occasionally. There is a distance between us now that I do not think either of us knows how to cross. But I am okay. I have my mother's house. I have her garden that she tended every summer. I have the kitchen table where she sat across from me and told me she had a plan. And I have the memory of a woman who loved me so completely that she spent her final months making sure no one could ever take that love away from me. Some people leave you money when they go. My mother left me something far more valuable than that. She left me the proof written in documents, sealed by